What's going on, Fantasy World? It's your boy Hot Soup. And the 2024 Week 8 season is almost at a close. Tonight, we have the Steelers going against the Giants. It's going to be a hot one. I think that Steelers defense is going to step up big. But hey, man, who knows? It's fantasy. Danny Dimes might go out here and show us something he hasn't showed us all season and put the Steelers to rest. Who knows what's going to go down, but it is going down tonight on Monday Night Football. But right now, we're going to talk about our overachievers and our underachievers for week number 8, man. We're going to talk about those overachievers first. First off, I had this guy on my top 5 starts last week, and I told y'all, man, on our overachievers, the first overachiever of the week, quarterback Bo Nix. Whoo! Over there in Denver, man, Bo Nix goes off for 284 yards, 3 touchdowns, 5 carries for 4 yards, and another touchdown. 29.76 fantasy points. Number 2, Matthew Stafford. That's right. On Thursday night, he ended up the number 5 quarterback overall in fantasy scoring this week. 279 yards with 4 TDs through the air, 1 interception, good for 25.76 fantasy points. Next on the board was Ramondre Stevenson. Look, we never know what it's going to be with this guy. He's either going to be a big hit or a big miss. This week, he was a big hit. Ramondre Stevenson goes off 23 touches, 65 yards, 2 TDs, a 2-point conversion for 22 points. That doesn't mean I'll run out and go start this guy next week. Look at the matchup. Make sure it's favorable before starting Ramondre Stevenson. His yards per carry ain't much, but he does get that goal line work and he does get that pass down work. He has a high floor for a running back, but he also has a low ceiling. Isaac Garando over there in San Francisco, man. We don't know how bad Jordan Mason is hurt right now. He was hurt, came back in the game, got hurt again. He was already coming off of a hurt game coming out last week with that shoulder injury. This could be something more serious than what we thought. Meaning, he needs to be benched next week, number 1. Number 2, we need to go out and pick up some stock shares in Isaac. He didn't even play but a little bit more than half a game, and he ended up with 17 touches, 102 yards, and a touchdown. 17.7 fantasy points, man. That was awesome performance by that young man. I see he is very explosive, runs a 4.33 40. Garendo was a college standout and high school standout in track and field. Y'all need to go get that guy. Pick him up off the waiver wire. I would if I were you. Devin Achin is our number 5, overachieving. Number 3 back overall in week 8, 16. He doesn't need a lot of touches to get it done. Moser can get 15 touches, and Achin get 15 touches. And when I tell you Achin gonna turn it into something, 147 yards on 16 touches, a touchdown. He was the number 3 running back on the week. Let me tell y'all something, man. Tua is back. What I've learned about fantasy football, man, is it depends on your quarterback. If you got a good quarterback there that's running efficient offense, your players will thrive. If you got a shit quarterback back there, I don't care who you got on your team. Tyreek Hill, you can have the best receiver in NFL, and he ain't going to do Nathaniel. Yeah. Lad McConkey. Ooh, Lad McConkey goes off. 6 targets, 6 receptions. He caught everything his way. 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. Good for 26.1 fantasy points. Lad ended up number 2 in fantasy scoring. What I do know is he is number 1 for Herbert over there in LA. I'm going to tell y'all now, I get him if he's still out there on your waiver wire. He's going to be a Julian Edelman, Don Beebe type of receiver, man. He's going to get a lot of targets. He's going to get a lot of receptions, and he gets a lot of yak. That's right, yards after the catch. Our next receiver, a guy we got to get off the waiver wire. Hopefully you got him last week. If you didn't, you need to get him now, man. Cedric Tillman over there in Cleveland. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 99 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And he was coming off a big game the week before. He is a must-go-get. 25.4 fantasy points in week 8, man. He was the number 3 overall receiver. Great job, man. Shots out to that boy Tillman. Josh Downs is our next receiver. He was the number 4 receiver on the week with 9 targets, 4 receptions, 109 yards, and a touchdown. 20.20 fantasy points in Yahoo standard scoring. He had a wonderful game, man. Look, I don't know what's going on over there with that quarterback situation. Richardson tapping out. That man tapped out in second quarter. Like, man, I need one. You need a breather. What is going on? Oh, my. He was getting his ass whooped. Man, let me tell y'all something. It's all situational. If there's a quarterback and he is terrible, I wouldn't start any receiver, running back, nothing on that team. They stack boxes, defensive scheme on that. It's the NFL. They're professionals. They get paid millions to do so. Our number 9 player, Cade Otton. Cade Otton is the number 1 receiver in Tampa Bay right now. With Evans out and Godwin out, Otton is the man. Otton goes off for 10 targets, 9 receptions, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns, 24.60 fantasy points. He was the number 1 tight end in scoring in week 8. And then our last tight end who went off, Kyle Pitts. 5 targets, 4 receptions, 91 yards, and 2 touchdowns. 23.10 fantasy points, number 2 in fantasy scoring. Those are your overachievers for week 8. I suggest if you heard some of those guys' names and you see them on those waiver wires, you need to go grab them ASAP. Now we're going to go over our underachievers for week 8. Underachiever number 1 was Geno Smith. Listen, I got stocks in Geno, and I'm going to be dropping his ass this week if he don't show me something. Geno Smith, boy, you lose DK Metcalf and you turn into Robert Griffin III. What the hell's going on with Geno, man? 212 yards, 0 TDs, 1 pick, 9.08 fantasy points, 29 overall quarterback. There was only 3 quarterbacks that did worse. That's right, man. CJ Stroud ends up number 26 overall in fantasy scoring. Listen, without Nico Collins, CJ is a shell. You heard it from the soup. 285 through the air, 1 TD, 12.40 fantasy points. CJ Stroud is not the guy that you drafted him to be. Our running back, first running back off the board who did terrible this week. He was number 38 overall, Kenneth Walker. 13 touches, 45 yards. Got a TD vulture from him, from Charbonnet. 6.5 fantasy points for Kenneth Walker. I even started that guy in a couple leagues, man. Got me sizzling. Javonte Williams is our next running back, number 34 on the week. That's right. There were 31 starting running backs that did better. There were 3 more backup running backs that did better. He was at the bottom of the pile this week, man. Javonte Williams, 21 touches, 52 yards, 7.2 fantasy points, number 34 overall. That was terrible outing. Not something that we wanted to see in week 8. Our next running back off the board, Brian Robinson Jr., did poorly. 32 overall. Only 32 running backs played this week. He was the worst. Let me tell you, man, that boy Brian Robinson had 17 touches, 76 yards, 8.1 fantasy points, no TDs, no nothing. Number 32 overall. He's going to have better days. Oh, my God. This guy right here hurt me to my soul, and I just traded for him. I probably just made one of the dumbest trades ever, but I got so many running backs. I had Jonathan Taylor hurt, so I traded Jonathan Taylor for George Pickens and Amari Cooper because I needed receiver work. And Amari Cooper goes up and gives the worst, the worst day of any receiver in the NFL. Any receiver, like you could have got a catch for 10 yards, man. There were receivers, 3rd string, 4th string, guys that came up off the damn practice squad that did better than Amari Cooper this week. He ended up the number 106th overall, man. 2 targets, 1 reception, 3 yards, 0.8 points. I think that he just needs time. He's playing with a great quarterback. But if this is what we are to come to see from Amari Cooper, I'm going to be sick. I got Amari Cooper in 3 or 4 leagues right now, man. I fired him up in all 4. I'm sick. Sick. Our next receiver off the board was Michael Pittman Jr., and this guy is just not going to be what we thought he was going to be unless they put Flacco behind the helm. Michael Pittman Jr. This man had 6 targets, 1 reception for 16 yards, 2.1 fantasy points, ended up the number 88th overall receiver. That's terrible. DJ Moore is our next receiver. 4 targets, 4 touches, and 34 yards. That's it, man. Them Bears, we got to do better, baby. Come on, man. Number 64 overall. Fantasy scoring. for a wide receiver in week 8 was DJ Moore. Next, Cole Kmet, same team, number 34 overall. Come on, man. We go for 10 tight ends. All we need is 10 tight ends to be in the top 10. 10. 10. If you're in a 10-man league, everybody should have a top 10 tight end or at least a top 15. Man, people started Cole Kmet like he was going to go off, and he should have. 1 target, 1 reception, and a 2-point conversion, man. 3.9 fantasy points, 34th overall tight end in fantasy scoring. His backups tight ends did better than him. And then our last tight end, Jake Ferguson, supposed to have a big game, did not. He had 8 targets and 6 receptions. You'd think that would yield more than 23 yards. 5.3 fantasy points, ended up number 28 overall fantasy scoring for tight ends in week 8. Those are your underachievers for week 8. This your boy Hot Soup, and I'm out.